So in the reading from the Bible, the passage from the Bible, Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And Swami asked the question, who is this I? And Christ, in many passages in the Bible, he says, I am the light of the world. He says, I am the true vine. He says, I am the good shepherd. He says, I am the way, the truth, and the light. And he also said, before Abraham was, I am. So who is this I? If we can understand that, we can understand the mystery of who we are. Because this I, as we read, is the only reality. Everything else shifts. But this I that was before Abraham, that is the light of the world, this I is the only reality. It is the only constant in this world, as Swami, his master says, of self-canceling delusions. This I that is a part of all of life, this I that smiles in the beautiful tulip, that radiates in a beautiful growing plant, this I that shines from the beautiful eyes of children who have humility and wisdom. This I is who we are. And when we say, I am, as on our journey, usually that I refers to something else. That I, the limited self, thinks that it is the body. And yet, that body is always changing. Think about it. Once our body was one little cell, and then it became an embryo in our mother's womb. That's what our body was. And then an infant born as Christ was born. And then a child with so much to learn and experience. And then an adult trying to do something of service and benefit. And then age comes and the body begins to change. And so who is this I? Who is this body? Sickness comes. And we think, well, is that who I am? And yet our Guru Bhais show us, that's not who I am. This body may be sick, but that's not who I am. And so we are not the bodies. Are we the minds and the thoughts? It's always changing. Think about your thoughts when you were a child. Think about your interests and what you considered important. Very few of us are the same thoughts or mental patterns than we had as children. It's always changing. And even from year to year, our thoughts change and our mental patterns change. So it's always in flux. And then, as old age comes, people often lose mental clarity. There was a wonderful disciple of Master, Kamala Silva, who wrote A Flawless Mirror, one of Master's closest disciples. She had Alzheimer's at the end of her life, lived here, and we took care of her as well as we could for a time. And someone asked Swamiji, how could this happen to such a devoted follower of Master? And he said, oh, it's just the mind. Her soul is unaffected. So we're not the body, this I. We're not the mind, this I. We're not the personality, because that changes too. My personality now isn't the same as when I was a little girl, although I'm afraid it's more the same than I would like it to be. But nevertheless, the personality changes. Our feelings change, things that seem so important. All of a sudden, what was that all about? Why did I get so upset about that? Or why did I get so elated about that? And so The thoughts, the body, the thoughts, the personality, the feelings, that's not who we are. That's not the I. And then there's what we do. I am a doctor, I am a lawyer, I am a farmer, I am an artist. That shifts too. Swamiji was amazing. He was a master of so many skills, a writer, a musician, a singer, a speaker, and yet he didn't identify with any of that. There was no sense of, this is who I am. And he would say when people we have to go through this a little bit too in India, people give these long introductions of everything that you've ever done in your whole life. And you're sitting there totally embarrassed. And then you have to get up and talk. And you realize, that's not who I am. And Swami was the same way. He said when they would give him this flowery introduction going on and on, he said, I would feel like a little mouse running onto the stage because I didn't have any identification with what I do, what is important to the eyes of the world. And so if we are not any of those eyes, who aren't we? And that's the secret of the whole spiritual life, trying to find out who we are beyond these false self-definitions. And then, as Swami said in that passage, he said, when Christ was not trying to say, look how special I am, he was saying, the light in me dwells in you. That's who you are. That's the I am. And it's in meditation, we observe that. I'm not the body. I'm not the thoughts. I'm not my personality. I am that observer watching myself play the part that you gave me to play. Sometimes it's wonderful, sometimes it's terrible, but I'll just play it nonetheless. And how do we get there? Master said in that wonderful quote that the director Pavan Kaul selected at the beginning of the movie The Answer, when this I shall die, then shall I know who am I. When this I shall die. And if we hold on to emotions and, oh, this was so tragic and this happened and all that, we can't ever get there. If we hold on to wrongs that people have done to us, oh, those people were so greedy, those people took advantage, whatever, we're just limiting who we are, this I that is part of the Christ. So when this I shall die, then shall I know who am I. And how do we get there? Well, the paths of yoga. We start with jnana yoga, the yoga of discrimination, neti. I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm not the body or the personality. And we leave all that. And then there's action, karma yoga. And we push everything that we are and have and do in service to God. In service, it doesn't matter what it is. God bless the gardeners in this community who make bok choy and tulips and tomatoes because they're pouring their energy into service. They're pouring the energy that the I is coming out in service to others. And then the I of bhakti yoga, of devotion, where we just say, Lord, I crave to be loved. I crave to feel your love and to know that I am loved, but I can only experience that when I get my I out of the way. And when I love you, God, with all my heart, then I know who I am, and I know that I am loved. It's the whole secret. We run here and there, and does he love me? Does she love me? Do they love me? Do they not love me? And all we have to do is love God. And it's all there. everything we ever wanted. And then finally, putting them all together, discrimination, service, devotion, we come to our path, Raja Yoga, the yoga of meditation. And in that path, then in the stillness of our soul, we experience that. When the mind is still and you feel who you are as part of a greater reality, and then there is no time, there is no space, there's just the I am in that moment. And so we need to understand that the I of who you are, of who we all are, this I is eternal. And it's filled with kindness, and it's filled with compassion for those less fortunate. And everything else will pass. Everything else is a dream. Master, in the beautiful poem, When I Am Only a Dream, he said, I come to tell you all of him and the way to encase him in your bosom and the discipline that brings his grace. That's what he came. That was the second coming of Christ that he brought, the Christ consciousness.